But 90% of my job as an instructor is when I'm teaching an in-person workshop, I'm walking around the classroom telling people when to stop. I'm celebrating World Watercolor Month with a new video every day in July. Okay, the doctor is in. Today I'm diagnosing the problem of overworking. If you are struggling, feeling like your paintings inevitably look stiff and overworked, this is a growing pain, really. First of all, I want to just encourage you with that. It can be a long time period of struggling with this feeling of having overworked your painting. The first thing I want you to know is if you're feeling bad about having overworked your painting, remind yourself that you are learning. When you've overworked a painting, what you've just taught yourself is that there's a boundary between finished and overworked, and you've gone a little further than that boundary allowed, than you're comfortable with. And in order to expand our boundaries, we need to go beyond them. And in order to know where our boundaries are, we need to cross those lines once in a while. So you don't have to feel bad or shame or guilt or any of those things about having overworked your paintings. However, if you do feel like your paintings are feeling stiff or heavy or overworked, or if there's areas of your paintings that are fussed over, there are some mindsets and some strategies that you can bring to your painting practice to help you remember where to focus and maybe to compensate for some of those habits that you've fallen into. First of all, I want to just encourage you to start to adopt a definition of success that isn't based on how much time your painting took to make. I know every time you show your friend a painting, they ask you, how long did it take you to paint that? And you would feel stupid saying, oh, I only took 5 minutes to paint it. But 90% of my job as an instructor is when I'm teaching an in-person workshop, I'm walking around the classroom telling people when to stop, telling them that their painting is beautiful and valid and good just the way it is, that there's magical things happening and they do not need to add to it. And learning to recognize that magic happening in your own painting and then stopping before you feel like, well, I need to add more because, I have only been painting for 5 minutes. I can't be done already. Just trust yourself. Stop when you see the magic happen. Don't go past that point. You can always come back and add more paint. And that to me has really been powerful. And some of my very favorite paintings have come together in minutes. Stop before you think you're done. Number 2, if you're overworking your paintings because you are trying to fix mistakes, I would encourage you to make some strategies, put some strategies in place, alternate ways of working with your mistakes. Yes, there are times when you can fix a mistake and it's okay to try to blot that stroke or cover it, but it's also a really wise strategy and a skill building technique to learn how to celebrate those mistakes. When you see that ugly stroke show up on the piece of paper, think about ways to make it look deliberate. That, I've placed that stroke here. I'm going to echo it over in this area. It's going to look like I meant to do that. For me, that has actually been one of my very favorite ways of bringing my paintings to life. Those inadvertent mistakes are the marks that often show the most genius if I'm willing to kind of revision my painting and accommodate and celebrate them. It's a really great skill to have. Another reason we overwork our paintings is often because we don't start on a good foundation. And I'm a painter who has never wanted to put hours of research or planning into my paintings. I want to just start. But I've noticed that when I keep the main thing, when I know what the focus of my painting is, what the main composition is, and where the major values should be placed, I'm much more able to create a strong painting than if I kind of start with a vague idea and then figure I'll work it all out as I paint. Sometimes that results in you painting too many details early in the painting, and then you kind of have to get the rest of the painting to catch up to those detailed areas. Sometimes it just results in you trying to pull proportions or perspective together that you could have planned a little bit before you started painting, and you wouldn't have run into those problems. So taking a little bit of time to do a value study. Generally, my value studies take me 2 minutes or less. Just really quick paintings in the single color to kind of establish where those major value patterns and shapes are. 2 minutes of my time saving me all kinds of grief later on. Thumbnail sketches often do the same thing. It's a little bit of mapping out the painting on a piece of paper and in your mind that will help you paint with a little more confidence and a little better idea of where you want to go and end up, and the ability to stop when you get there. Another thing that I think happens, and this was a real struggle for me for a long time, was that I was actually so afraid of overworking my paintings that I would, I don't know, is underwork a thing? I would stop before I was sure I was done. And I've been trying to put in just a little bit more into my paintings over time, because I don't want to just stop because I'm anxious about overworking my painting. And one way that I cured myself of that anxiety that I might be overworking my painting was to set out for a time to deliberately overwork my paintings. And I actually feel like now my paintings tend to fall into 3 categories. I have the literal category, the minimalistic category, and my overworked category, which tends to be quite dark, but a lot of fun when you just keep throwing paint at it and just see if you can push past those mental boundaries of what constitutes an overworked painting. And it's been really fun for me to redefine overworked as not necessarily a negative. As you think about these reasons for overworking your painting, you might want to develop a few playful strategies to help you avoid overworking your paintings in the future. I like to play games with myself, to set little challenges for myself that are kind of playful as a way of kind of drilling myself on my confidence and ability to make choices that don't result in overworking, basically. One challenge that I set for myself is a time limit. Can I paint this subject in 10 minutes? So that's setting a minimum of, just get those details down, see how far I can get in 10 minutes. Can I get to completion? What would it look like if I painted this subject in 5 minutes? Well, I have to work with bigger shapes and fewer strokes. What if I painted this in 1 minute? And of course, that's going to be a lot more like a value study, but it again forces you to edit and simplify, and you just don't have time to overwork your painting. Another anti-overworking challenge I'll set for myself is to paint something with a minimum of brush strokes. And it's funny because 10 years ago, when I was just starting out on YouTube, I was teaching myself this strategy and thinking about that idea of using many fewer strokes than I was used to using, forcing myself not to second guess my brush stroke, because once that brush hit the paper, I was on a ration of how many strokes I could use. I also have set challenges where I'm not allowed to touch any part of my paper more than once. You place that shape and you don't get to touch it again. And that is also an overworking strategy. As you think about these limiting beliefs, overworking is a limiting belief, because it turns out overworked paintings can be beautiful too. And I want to remind you of that as you think about these things you tell yourself about your painting. It's overworked, it's full of mistakes, it's a failure. You are not defined by whether your painting succeeds or fails. Make the process of painting so enjoyable that you just look forward to showing up, no matter how the painting turns out. When we can do that, when we pour our love for what we're doing into our painting process, the paintings we create reflect the joy that we feel in making them. And that is what makes your paintings come alive. That's what makes your work reflect who you are. And it just contributes something beautiful to the world. And it's a wonderful experience to be able to give that gift to yourself. Don't judge the work, just celebrate the fact that you get to do it. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with more watercolor advice you can learn from. Don't forget to include the hashtag World Watercolor Month when you participate and post watercolor art in July.